Hi everyone, welcome to Davos Film Festival. This is the fourth year we're hosting Davos Film Festival, and I'm happy to have Jean Oelwang with us. We're lucky to have Jean with us. Jean, thank you for making time. We host this festival to make room in Davos for creative industries, storytelling, and impact investing. And we believe that through storytelling, we can shift the narrative, and through reorchestrating capital, we can support that. And they have to go hand in hand, meaning impact investing can't be accomplished fully without support, without the support of storytelling, conscious storytelling. So that's our goal, and we host filmmakers and executives that believe in that. And impact investors as well. So thank you for coming again. And so I'll start with impact investing in general. So as you know, impact investing became noisier lately, and some people are saying that it's not as strong as it should be, or it's not moving capital in the right direction. Where do you see impact investing moving the needle the most in your work?
Yeah, and I guess first, Ali, thank you for having me here, but also thank you for the time and the love you put into creating films, because I think that creativity and that the films, and when people are absorbed in something and that emotion, that's what gets them to move and to change, and we don't have enough of that in the world right now. So thank you for putting that time and love into that. And just on impact investing, I guess my philosophy around impact investing is like the vision or the dream would be that all investments one day we can say are impact investments. And I think that people that are starting ideas that are disruptive will hopefully help shift the rest of the world so that other companies have impact investing within them that become investments that are pure impact. And like whenever someone says that impact investing can't move the needle, can't shift capital, I always think of the amazing company, I don't know if you know Leapfrog Investments, where they actually went out to serve the underserved with financial services. And everyone thought they were crazy. And last year, they announced that their portfolio now does $7 billion in revenue every year.
Whoa.
They have over 550 million customers, and they've created 33 million jobs. So I think that what's happening is those stories are not being told right now. And like if you look at just even renewable energy right now, it was something, I think it was 60% of global electricity last year. And I think the year before that, 40% of global electricity were renewables in 2024. But then in 2023, 60% of new jobs were from renewables. So it's happening all around us right now. And I think it's those entrepreneurs that come up with these disruptive ideas that start that movement. And then it becomes this unstoppable movement like renewables are right now in the world. But I do think also that the world needs to think about the absurdity where we're actually pushing back on ourselves. Like if you look at planetary harmful subsidies, which are $2 trillion right now, we need to also disrupt that because we'll never get to scale with impact investing unless we also disrupt the absurd.
That's, you said a couple things that kind of triggered a certain, light bulbs for me. One was crazy, the word crazy, because I hear this a lot in the impact investing space. People who do the impact investing are seen as the crazies of the world, but then the real measurement of the impact is so important. What you just described with the Leapfrog is that, right? And they were able to actually create revenue, which is a problem in the impact space as well, where, a lot of people think impact investing will not mean return on investment, return on impact, ROI is just enough. But I think obviously a lot of investors is called investment, so they are looking for ROI. So what you just described is, I think, crucial. And two is storytelling. I think through storytelling, those type of impact, investments are amplified and actually become examples for other people as well. Because most of the time there's a deal flow problem in the impact investing space as well. That being said, I would love to segue into families and how they see, family offices and how they see impact investing, because it's more of a patient capital and long-term thinking. I'm curious what you think for family offices and how they play a role in impact investing.
Yeah, I think family offices are one of the keys to systemic change in the world right now. And they can get involved in impact investing on the full spectrum of capital. So from their philanthropic dollars through their commercial dollars, but also beautiful blended models in the middle, which I think are really exciting. And very few companies can do that, but families can do that.
Yes.
And they can help clear the runway for new market models through their philanthropic dollars, working with, government, working with not-for-profits. So they have this beautiful spectrum, but I think they're also more flexible. They're able to take risks. They're able to move more quickly. And they're also able to, because they're not driven by short-term profit all the time and have that, that pressure, that ongoing pressure every day, they can step back and take a pause and also be more creative in thinking about systemic change. And I'm really excited. I've been meeting a lot of intergenerational families right now. And this next generation of wealthy families is really exciting because they're thinking more systemically. They're thinking about, okay, how do we shift change, not to just give money to a project, but how do we do it through new models, through things that are going to sustain themselves. And I also feel like families are beautiful because they have these deep connections and they have this trust at the center, which is very rare in an organization or in a company. And that also allows them to weather changes, to be more resilient, to get through those bumpy periods that things take sometimes when you're looking at new models or when you're looking at something that's going to have impact rather than something that's just going to make profit. So I'm really excited about the role that wealthy families can make in the world right now. And I think this great wealth transfer, as they call it, I think it's something like $30 trillion, can be a great impact transfer if we do it in the right way. And I guess the last thing I'd say about families is they also have this ability to convene other families to come together so that they can make a much more outsized impact than if they were on their own or if they were just one company.
Very true. And I would love to chat more about that as well with you. But I want to ask about a story, an impact investing story that you've seen from a family office perspective that you really liked, or it can be a great example for other families.
Yeah. So we try to think. There's been so many different impact investing stories that, and I think it's interesting. When you said that right away, I thought about the Branson family, and each time they start a company, they think about it from an investment perspective to disrupt an industry, to turn something upside down. But I think one of the ones, I guess, that people will think of as a large company, but it's actually a family story, is IKEA. Because IKEA started with that philosophy of we're doing business because we want to be great to our employees, we want to give great products to our customers. And a lot of people don't know that they give 15% of their profits back into a foundation. So the foundation itself has given 2 billion euros away in impact right now, which is extraordinary. But I think what's even more extraordinary is how they make their money. Because these family values have kind of gone throughout the whole organization, and they created IKEA to make people's lives better. So they take care of their employees, they listen to young leaders, they look through their supply chain and have traceability and look at circularity. They're looking at how they get chemicals out of their products like PFABs. They're looking at renewables. So that's one on a very large scale that I think. And then on a small scale, I think about some of the stuff that the family that I work with, Branson family, from an impact perspective, they've funded a lot of entrepreneurs in the BVIs. There's this one great guy who created this tourism of flat-bottom boats with glass at the bottom, and he's created lots of jobs. He's changed his life for his family. So I think you have it on all different spectrums.
Very cool. That's a really nice one, actually. I did not know about that.
Yeah.
And the IKEA family, I did not know that they were actually,
they're amazing.
Those are gems for sure.
And Jesper Broden, who heads up IKEA, he's just stepping down as a CEO, but also he's just a leader that has impact, and through every bone in his body. That's when he thinks about decision making, that's what he thinks about. When the war happened in Ukraine, the first thing he did was turned his IKEA stores into places where families could reunite. People that come in from, this is in Poland, people that come in from Ukraine could have a place to sleep and stay. And so it's just that constant thinking about how your business can have impact. And I think that's just as important as the startups, is how we embed that in existing businesses.
100%. It's disrupting a business internally, going through the corporate immunity, and actually applying certain impact measures. That's also a success story for sure, and it's a difficult one. Let's segue into more, the global grand challenges that we are passionate about and you are passionate about. I'd be curious, especially in this, in today's world, there's a lot of problems that we're facing. We'll get to the AI part of it later and the nuclear threat that comes with it. But I would love to talk more about, general, certain inequality in, health or education or any type of inequality problems that you see that you are passionate about, or, what you think is the most pressing these days.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because I've been thinking about this being at Davos too, is that you often hear, like I went to the Edelman Trust Barometer session this morning, and we often talk about these like symptoms, like trust or inequality, many problems in the health system also. They come back to that we're not focused on systemic shifts that are actually causing the brokenness. And like if you look at our economic model, it is so broken, and the incentive structures and the way we drive people, or like what we were just talking about with subsidies, we're driving people in the wrong way, and that's what's causing many of the problems. But we're not going to the root causes of those systems to actually change them. So I think that's one thing, and I think we're also talking still in silos when all of these things are completely integrated. Right. And I think if your question about which ones I think are most pressing, I'd probably say the economic system, but I'd also say the planetary system, because if we keep on the path we're on right now, we just recently breached 7 out of 9 planetary boundaries, which is absurd if you think about this is the life system that keeps every one of us alive, and we're just not paying attention to it. So. And even there, we talk about climate over here, we talk about biodiversity over here, and it's one system, and they all impact each other, which is why I love Johan Rockström's 9 planetary boundaries and that model, because it brings it together as one Earth system, whether it's water, chemical pollution, land use, biodiversity. So I feel like that one, if we don't do that, we won't have companies, we won't leave a world for future generations. And so I feel like that we have to address as human beings, and we can. We did it with the ozone layer. We can do it. But I think the third one that I would say, which doesn't get talked about very much, is I feel like hyper-individualism is disconnecting us from what matters in the world. And hyper-individualism, to me, is one of the root causes of almost all the problems when you look back on it. And I think the US right now is probably the biggest living example of what happens when a nation pushes towards hyper-individualism to an extent where it just becomes complete self-interest. And I feel like that's what also disrupts the education system. Like if you think about it, like I'm a lot older than you, but when I went to grade school, like I was taught how to be a superhero. I was taught how to win. I wasn't taught how to collaborate. I wasn't taught how to partner in my life. And I feel like that, to me, is one of the biggest systemic shifts we need to make, but no one talks about it.
Yes. By the way, you said partner, and a couple of things, again, that kind of created those light bulbs, but I would love to hear more about partnering. And I read your book as well, which is amazing.
Thank you for reading it.
I would love to, hear a couple tips around collaborating and how that's possible, how we can overcome hyper-individual society. That's the hyper-individual society that the U.S. is going, becoming. How can we really partner up in the age of AI?
Yeah, and I feel like, sadly, AI and social media are hijacking intimacy, and they're disconnecting us and just really stripping the fabric of society. But I feel like they can also be incredible tools to actually reconnect us. And that's what we need to start thinking about with AI and technology, is how do we use them as tools that reconnect us and don't disrupt the human connection, and don't hijack that. Because I fear if we allow them to hijack that intimacy and that connection, then that's what's going to destroy the world through AI. If we use AI as a supplement to our human connection, then there's huge potential for AI to advance so many things in the world. But if we allow it to hijack our intimacy, game's over, in my opinion. And partnering, I think, we have to almost relearn how to connect with people again. I see so many, even when you walk down Davos, the promenade, everyone's on their phone, everyone's not talking to each other, they're sitting in a cafe on their phone even when they're across from one another. And so when we studied about 65 incredible partnerships to look at how they did it. And they were some people that people know, like Archbishop Tutu and Leah, but then lots of people that you may not have heard of, like Ray and Lester, who fight for the death penalty every day in America. And we came up with these commonalities that they had with partnering. And one of the most beautiful things was it always started with something bigger, like looking at how you can find and identify partners that will help you become the best version of yourself and help you do something much bigger in the world. And I think even at that stage when we're trying to identify friendships or partners, we often don't look for that. You know, we look for someone who may make us laugh but we don't look for who's going to help challenge you and who's going to disrupt you. Like, there's these two amazing people in America who are complete opposing forces, Cornel West on the left and Robert George on the right. And when I interviewed them, they left me and they said, make sure that you go out and find a friend that unsettles you. And that always sticks with me about when you're partnering, it's not necessarily about finding someone that's just like you, it's finding about people that unsettle you, people that will challenge you.
That is a really great note, because a lot of people would think, harmony creates partnerships, but I think there's magic when, like opposite things come together and still be in harmony. And talking about that, how would you comment on today's world and how where we're headed to when it comes to other, a couple countries that are not able to partner at the moment, and not necessarily, what do you think is the world? What do you think of the situation of the world right now?
Yeah, I'm really worried about the world we're in right now, and it's actually interesting because at some of the sessions in Davos for the first time, I've seen people be vulnerable when they normally haven't been vulnerable here, which has been interesting. So I think we're in a precarious, I don't know if you feel the same way, but very precarious position right now.
Yeah. It is a time to partner somehow, I think, among all the countries. I'll shift the topic towards AI again, and I would love to talk about challenges that come with AI. If you have anything in mind to say, if not, we can always switch as well. But what are some of the challenges that you see in the world when it comes to AI, and how we can overcome these challenges? We talked about the individualism one, and then what else is out there for you?
Yeah, I think the hijacking of intimacy is probably the biggest one on my mind right now. Is talking about people getting these chat bots, talking about people eventually getting robots that will replace those human interactions, and that really, really worries me. And I think the tech companies, their models try to hijack intimacy because they know that's what will actually drive growth and revenue, because someone wants that connection. So that's probably my biggest worry. I think my second worry is that I worry that as human beings, we're not coming together to collaborate to create standards for AI right now. And that worries me, because you can see all these pockets of people trying, but then you sit in a lot of the AI meetings in Davos and it's all about growth. That's all they're talking about is growth, not about how they come together to make sure that it doesn't disrupt our systems worse than it has. And I think the third thing, I guess, that worries me about AI is built on broken systems, broken words, broken language, broken connections right now in the world. Because much of what's on the internet is not necessarily built from human connection. And I say that because, like the ozone community, we've been studying them for 15 years. And if you look at all the interviews that we did with them and the content, and you do that analysis, you see that a lot of the reasons it worked was because of the deep connections at the center and that human connection. If you use AI to do analysis and find out why the Montreal Protocol worked or how we close the ozone layer, they'll come up with completely different things that are from whatever's available currently, which is more about someone from a consultancy writing a strategic view on why it worked. And so we're missing that human angle already in the web and the internet. And so if we're building ourselves and building AI models on that brokenness that's not built on connection, I deeply worry about that.
Then let's shift to storytelling. I would love to talk more about storytelling. And how important it is, because I read Yuval Noah Harari, the guy, and I really love his books. And in one of his books, he mentions storytelling is what set us apart as an animal, right? As humans, that's how we became the power in nature, through storytelling, because we started telling stories to each other, right? Like even basically everything. Like we were able to collaborate using stories. Without stories, we couldn't collaborate. Humans found, certain stories that they believe that even nations are stories, or religious stories. Any story brought people together. So in this age, when it comes to converging with AI, how do you think storytelling will play a role in bringing people together and helping people partner?
I think things like what you're doing here with Davos and bringing the film festival is really critical, because I think what we don't want to lose is that human-to-human connection right now. And what I fear is, like, when you look at AI, like we create a lot of different videos for different programs, and like agencies can like that really quickly create something with AI. But again, you immediately almost recognize that it's lost kind of that empathy, that respect, that humility, that just that feeling, that humanness. And I think we can't lose that. And I worry with creativity that AI will be getting more and more advanced, building off of people's creativity from decades and their IP, and coming up with things that will displace that human-to-human creativity. So I think what you're doing here in convening and bringing people together, and I think artists coming together all over the world to make sure that they build something that will not allow AI to disrupt that creativity so significantly that we won't have young artists coming through the pipeline. So that probably is what worries me on that side. The positive side of is that, from like supplementing human creativity or supplementing human research, AI can be an amazing tool to help us advance storytelling even more and learn even more. And so I think the potential of it is enormous, as long as we always ground it in humanness.
Yes, and independent storytelling. And I think empowering independent storytellers who need to tell an untold story, or who need to really represent underrepresented communities. I think that's really important, because the studio system that we live in today, people don't get distribution. Like even independent storytellers who shoot a movie, I don't know, in some parts of the world that they want to tell the story of their community, nobody sees them. I think that's the main problem that we also have to somehow solve, so that those stories get amplified. And this is our goal here too, just to invite those stories in and giving them a place. So would you be able to talk about any storytelling initiatives that you guys have and you work on?
Yeah,
because I heard a couple that like that guy got invited to certain things that were on Necker Island that had film festivals or certain things that are impact investing in film.
We're doing a lot of storytelling right now on the planetary side, because we feel like the planetary boundaries itself that story has not been told yet in a way. There's an amazing film that Johan did called Breaking Boundaries with David Attenborough, and that was kind of the starting point of it. But now we're trying to really think of how we storytell to bring to life the wonder of thinking of the planet as one system, and thinking about all of us as planetary guardians of this extraordinary planet. And so we actually just went through and worked with this amazing new agency actually called Studio One, Ajaz Ahmed, who used to, I don't know if you've ever met him, through AKQA, but they just did this amazing, like we tasked them to say, okay, come up with a story and a brand around if we had an incredible, which Johan's building right now, platform where all the planetary data was in one place. And that's something AI can help us build, which is exciting. Amazing. Yeah. And so and they came up with this beautiful storyline of collective intelligence for humanity. And then the name around, and again, this is not the final name, but Planetary Pulse, which we love because it brings in not just the planetary side, but how each of us has a pulse and the planet has a pulse and it's connected. So I think that storytelling around how we get it in a different direction. And we did something in bathrooms across New York. This is a silly story, but it captured people's imaginations that showed how many chemicals we have in our bodies. Because there's 70,000 chemicals that are out there. Only less than 1% are tested for human safety. So it really grabbed people's imaginations. So I think it's also telling stories in unlikely places. Like that was a really interesting lesson for us, because we put them around news stations all over New York where the bathrooms and restaurants and things were. And then we saw the next week there was an uptake in stories around microplastics and PFAS.
Yes.
And so I think it's also thinking about unlikely ways and
Beautiful.
places to tell stories, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
But I think films have such a power to shift people's imaginations, like that beautiful ocean film that's out right now from David Attenborough, or it just, again, it puts you into another space. And I think your point about untold stories, like we're studying now all the times that as humanity we've had great human collective achievements, whether that's the ozone community, the liberation struggle in South Africa, whether it's ending smallpox in India. And I just talked to the guys who helped make the International Criminal Court happen, and it's almost impossible to find that story. And that should be a story we're telling in the world, we're doing films about. The same with the ozone community, where we've actually come together and been successful, and we're not doing that right now.
Yes, and I'm actually fascinated by the New York story as well, 'cause I live in New York, and I always think about this. I'm like, are we inhaling a lot of stuff here? Because there's so much. And there's obviously a lot of microplastics, there's a lot of different, it's just, I always think about this. Every time I'm in the subway, there's, I'm like, this must be unhealthy.
Yeah.
And the fact that you guys, actually went deeper and looked into it, I would love to know more about it. So also I would love to talk about how impact investing and storytelling go hand in hand, and how important it is to reorchestrate capital in the right way, but then also tell the story so the effect amplifies and the collaboration also amplifies around the world.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really exciting, because if you bring the right group of partners together, if you bring some philanthropic dollars in, commercial on the impact investing side, if you also bring in storytellers, you can just exponentially amplify the message. Like we just did this at COP30, where we had a group of families that came together and they helped fund a planetary science pavilion. And then we created this amazing network of scientists for the first time at COP30. And we then brought in this amazing network of media and social influencers and storytellers. And so we had these media moments. We did 3 massive media moments, and we reached 350 million people. And I think if you don't couple the impact investing with the storytelling, your impact investing is only going to be as big as what you can do.
Yes.
If you couple it with like bringing in philanthropists, bringing in others, you can make it so much bigger. And that's where I think we miss a trick, because we're so focused on our individual thing. But when you expand it out, like the science pavilion was owned by everyone. It was all of these people that came in. And the scientists were so excited and so proud to be able to tell their important story for the first time, really, which is it's just so rewarding to be part of, too.
Yes, of course. That is actually a key example. Thank you for sharing that. Because it doesn't happen often, and some people actually have different opinions about this. And some people say, storytelling doesn't matter. It doesn't really move the needle. Or putting more and more capital is more important than spending time with the storytelling part of it. Is about the amount of money you put into a certain cause versus the story that's on the side. I feel like it's like we spoke before.
Yeah.
Storytelling is a powerful tool. Money is also a story that we invested.
Yeah.
We invented.
Right?
Like we invented money as a story, because before, it's like if you burn $100, it's gone, right? It doesn't exist anymore. It ceases to exist. And before that, let's say, when the first times of civilization, you would own a land, and if it's yours because your neighbors would say it's yours.
Yeah.
But then when deeds started happening, you would have a piece of paper in your hand. That's okay. This is mine now, right? And it's a form of storytelling, because now you have a proof, and storytelling is very similar, because these are all stories that we built, including money. So moving money in one direction is definitely important. Capital orchestration is very important, but being able to amplify it and actually put emotion in it, I think is really important. We hosted. With Leah, we hosted something called Emotions to Generate Change.
Beautiful, what a beautiful name.
With a lot of photography in the St. Peter Square, and it was about basically creating, triggering the right emotions to cause these changes, other than the capital itself.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Let this be my last question.
Okay.
If you could pick one area to put all the money in the world into, in a challenge or a problem, what would you pick? what do you think is what do you think is the most
that's a
burning
very
area?
tough question. I would have to say I would put as much money as I possibly could into making the planetary boundary science a measurement and framework for the world. Because if we are not building this relationship and a partnership with our planet where we stop extracting and continue to breach boundaries, nothing else really matters because we won't have anything else. We're just killing wonder for future generations right now. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that one, to me, will also impact all the broken systems, because if you make it a measurement and operating framework and we're really understanding how we're impacting the overall planet, then companies will have to shift because they'll have to value a living nature on their balance sheet. They'll have to be more cognizant of the resources that they're taking out and making their money off the back of from nature right now. So you'll see a massive shift in our economic model. Multilaterals would have to think in a radically different way because they'd have to think of it they'd have to think of it as a security issue. They'd have to think of it as an issue about how they make sure that they can continue to take care of their citizens with food, with water, with land. Mm-hmm. So that would shift. And then we as individuals would realize that we're not in control. We're here in service. And part of that service has to be in service of the planet that keeps us alive every day. Mm-hmm. And I think that we don't think about that because we've become human beings who are so focused on consumption. And so I feel like if we did that, it would trigger a wider systemic shift in the world.
Jean, thank you for all these gems that you shared today. You created a lot of moments, a lot of inspiration for me. I don't know if you know, but a lot of so many words that you mentioned, including consumption culture and all this stuff, I think it's very inspiring. And I'm personally leaving this with a lot of inspiration. And so I hope everybody who listens will also leave with a lot of inspiration today. Thank you for sharing all the wisdom. Thank you for being here with us. And thank you for making time.
And thank you, Ali Leah, for creating this gem in the middle of Davos, because I think Davos needs that creativity, it needs that energy, it needs that storytelling. And it's missing from a lot of the rooms you go in here. So I'm really glad that you guys have created this to bring in that energy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're the best.